I'm ready. I can't speak for the rest
Darby,
of the board.
your microphone. Microphone. Call this meeting of the Master Facilities Plan Committee, May 9th, 2022. I'm looking at the minutes.
Yeah.
Jenny, would you call the roll for us, please?
Mr. Adi,
Yes.
Mrs. Bodie,
Here.
Mrs. Casper,
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer,
Here.
Mrs. O'Connor,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Passarge,
Here.
Mrs. Fuller, Mr. Hatfield,
Here.
and myself here.
Thank you, Mr. Passarge and Mr. Miller. The floor is yours.
Sure.
So we need a motion to approve the minutes for the committee.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Bodie. Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. Any discussion? All right, Mrs. Logan?
Mrs. Bodie,
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Adi,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Passarge,
Yes.
Mrs. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield,
Yes.
and Mrs. Logan, yes.
All right. Well, welcome. First, I want to say thank you to everyone for getting through last meeting and starting to narrow down the options for us. That's a lot of hard work, a lot of discussion. It's great discussion, but we appreciate you narrowing down the options so we can start to move forward and continue this process. Today, we're going to review a few different things. We're going to talk a little bit about the OFCC. We had a conference call with them today, talk about some updated information we received today. We're going to review a proposed timeline and checklist of items that we need to look at as we continue to move forward through this process. We'll talk about the community engagement process that we plan to embark in. Betsy and Ashley will take the lead on most of that because they've been working diligently on that, and we'll talk about any other items as needed. So first of all, we want to talk a little bit about an interesting phone call we had with the OFCC this morning. Just wanted to go through and see where we are. Anything has changed from their perspective. So we're on the call this morning, and our representative, Joseph McNeil, we went through and told him, hey, we've gone through, we've updated, we got down to some choices. So we just started asking, okay, what are some next steps or things that we need to take back to the committee to discuss? The first thing too, and I don't know if Jim or anybody else was on the call, want to chime in as well. The first thing he said he would recommend for us is looking at participation in the ELP program to look at if we do that, they can provide updated enrollment numbers for us, and they'll go through and look at budgets and stuff like that. So he recommended looking at the participation in the ELP program moving forward. He said there's no cost or liability to the district to participate, but it gives the authority to the OFCC, or at least permission to say, hey, they're really interested in this process. Let's go through and we'll invest money to do these updates on behalf of the master planning process. So he recommended that as a recommendation as we move forward. Anything else from that, Jim?
May I interrupt, Chris?
Sure.
So we've got 2 new board members since we went through that the last time.
Right.
And there are some obligations that we're committing to with that. Perhaps you could walk through that so they'd understand that.
Yeah, and I attached part of your handouts today is we have the excerpt from the OFCC about the ELP program and what it means. So to summarize this, but it gives more detail, but to summarize, basically you agree to participate with the OFCC, that you're going to go through and partner with them as part of the master facility planning process. And if you look at the equity list that the state has about when you're able to receive funds, they only have so many funds a year that go to districts that have passed bonds and are in that process. So if you're still interested in participating with them, but your number is not going to be up anytime soon. They would like you to participate in this program. So once you have your master plan approved by them and you do any kind of segmented parts of your master plan, you start to earn credits that will be given to you at a later date when your number does come up in the equity system. So with this, there are some things that you need to look at. So it does require a board resolution to participate in the program. The last time we went through this, the big discussion around that was part of the resolution, you got to determine when you think you may be on the ballot next. It doesn't mean you have to be on the ballot at that time. It just gives the sense from for the OFCC, how serious is the district and are they still working through that process? So that was one of the things in this resolution that sort of, for lack of a better term, hangs people up that, hey, there's a date that we may be on the ballot, but it doesn't commit us to being on the ballot. It's just part of their process, a standard resolution.
Well, and we passed that before and then we didn't go on the ballot. So I think that should give people some confidence that it does not tie us to any particular thing.
True. And I think from the OFCC perspective, you know, they have budgets and plans and they try to do their priorities of work too. And if districts are serious about doing anything with them, they want us to say, hey, we're committed to going through this process. Then we're going to commit to allocate resources to you guys to do that. So again, it doesn't cost the district anything. It does not obligate us to do anything else beyond receive the data back from the OFCC from enrollment updates and their budgeting and forecasting piece for their facility assessments.
And it does say that we'll go on the ballot within a year of that
Yeah,
resolution.
typically, if within that year, if you
If
don't
we're
go on the
going to.
ballot, then you come back and say, okay, we weren't on the ballot this year. We still want to participate. So you do another resolution again, if you want to stay within that program. So
Remind me, Chris, do we lose our place in line if we do that? No,
no, you do not, but it really does not take place and lock you in until you have your master facility plan approved. So going through the expedited local partnership program, in the case that you want to do this, you want to participate, then when you have your master plan approved and everything's locked in, that's when you're locked in, once they approve that final plan. Again, if you participate in this program, if you do any kind of work towards your master facility plan, that's where you earn credits for any kind of work that you do that will be paid at a later date. That sort of is that program. There's a lot more detail in this handout. So if you have any questions as you go through it, have time to review it, just please reach out. We can help you walk through any questions you may have about that. Anything?
do we know what the current price is right now?
Current?
Dollar amount, the give back portion, the percentage?
Interesting. We did talk about that today. In the state share right now is up to 29%.
Oh, wow.
So it's moved from 24 to 29.
Correct.
And Chris, just to clarify, the credit that we would get for anything forward or, you know, before we get to the actual plan, that comes into play for whatever the total percentage is. It's not like extra on top of the building plan, correct?
Correct. So
I'm saying that right?
yeah, so basically when we go through and we approve a master plan, anything that we do has to be part of the master plan.
Right.
So if part of the master plan is to replace a roof at one of our schools that's going to remain, let's just choose West or East Freshman. You know, East Freshman is a newer building, but at some point we're going to have to replace that roof. And when we do that, if we do it before we get on the schedule from then, we'll get credit for replacement of that roof.
Yep.
Because it's part of that master plan.
Okay. Thank you.
That makes sense?
Yep.
I have a question on this. The last time it was reversed was 2017, correct?
Last time
Yes.
24.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that was his first recommendation. If we're looking at things, is like I said, doesn't obligate the district. The attached document. So another interesting part of the conversation we have was really looking at in past history when they looked at doing their annual updates and cost increase, they're looking at 2 to 3% per year was sort of the typical cost increase that they would see. The latest cost set jumped up by 17.27% for their cost estimates for that. So I think that surprised everyone, how much of a jump that had. And another interesting part of that piece is when they look at the cost piece, they look at it over a 2-year. So they look at an actual for a year and projected for another year. So when they look at the cost estimates, they do that because by the time you pass a bond, by the time you go through the design phases and put shovel on the ground and get something built, you're probably 2 to 3 years down the road. So they try to project what that would be down the road. So when they're doing their budget piece, they sort of forecasted what it could be. So if we're looking at numbers right now, 3 years from now, they're going to be a little bit different. Did I capture that correctly? Yeah. So that's why that 17.27% is, it's a large number. It's almost a 2-year look.
Renovations was 20%.
Yeah, and renovations were at 20%. So this is your new construction jump at 17, and renovations went up by about 20%.
Can you confirm what numbers we are applying that 17% increase to on the plan? Is it,
It's both materials and labor.
okay. So whatever you have calculated so far, add 17% to that?
Roughly, yes. And that's part of the process too. They'll go in and look at our actual options, and they'll go put in the actual 22 cost sets. We're working on 22 right now. I think we used the 21 cost set, so we're basically a year behind the cost sets that are being updated with the OFCC. And the way the cost sets are updated, they update those every March. They go through and look at that, then they're implemented or effective that following July. That's how the OFCC runs their cost updates.
We are going to send in your current master plans to the OFCC, and they are going to update those numbers to the 22 cost set. So there again, the stuff that we've been looking at was based on the 21 cost set. We're going to send those in. They're going to update those numbers. So probably at the next meeting or somewhere through there, we will have more accurate numbers on what the OFCC says it is.
Okay, thank you.
And again, it's a point in time when those numbers are. So the further we go on with this process, if we don't do anything, those numbers will continue to change throughout that process. So, and that's part of the discussions that we need to talk about as well moving forward. He even pointed out, so keep in mind that the dollar amounts provided by the OFCC are budget estimates, they're not actual costs. So keep in mind when you see these big price tags, that's the estimated budget that they would have for if you did everything, but that's not the actual cost that you're going to incur at that point in time. So any other updates, Jim, from that we missed? We're at 29% now for a cost share. A couple other things too. We did talk about, we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next part of our agenda, but just looking at the timing of ballots and his perspectives on that. He said they do it since they do a cost update each year in March and they're effective in July. If you go on no matter it's this May or following May, basically your cost sets are about 10 months old at that time. So anytime you go on the ballot in May, you're looking at cost sets from the previous year that are getting ready to be updated and effective for that following July. So he said, just be aware of that whenever your planning is, if you ever go on, whether this May or a future May, that your cost sets are a little bit older than they typically would be. So he said about 10 months old at that point, and they're getting ready to be updated. And that if you go on in November, they're about 3 to 4 months old. So it's a little bit closer to where those cost sets would be. So he said, just from your discussions and planning process, just keep that in mind as you go through that process and look at that. And the last thing he said that stuck out to me, and this was pushing off your plan further down the road does not get better from a cost perspective. So anything else that I missed? Anything, Jim?
No, that was a good synopsis of
Yeah.
the meeting.
So any questions about that update today from the OFCC?
Did they give you any projections on with that cost share at 29%? Is there any opportunity, or do you think there's a chance that will increase further, like a year out, or is that again just a mystery guess?
Well,
It
he
could go
did talk about how it is calculated. He said, since we are growing in students, he said that does help us,
Okay.
that we're in a growing stage as far as students. That does help our list. It was what the, shoot, my minute,
It's either your student, yeah, either your enrollment goes up or your valuation of your properties go down, basically. And that's what makes that ratio. So it's one of the two. He's thinking it's probably the increase in.
right, because our property valuations are going up. So it's property valuations divided by enrollment is sort of how they get that number, with whatever formula they use. So for us, even though our property values are increasing, our enrollment's increasing as well, so that it helps that number go up as well. So if we ever get to a point where we flatten out or start to decrease, you'll see that number start to drop back down. So again, that number is a point in time where it could be fluid and come back down, or continue to grow. It's hard to say.
I have a question for you, Mr. Miller. You sent out, and thank you for this, the enrollment projections for secondary today. Do we have that for elementary?
There's tabs at the bottom for each one.
When I printed, I only got 2 pages, so I'll have to go back and reprint.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can pull up the email
okay,
too.
thank you.
We do have space concerns. You want to talk about this now?
I can, sure.
Well,
Since we're talking about that.
Right.
Happy to provide you with a segue.
Thank you.
Yes. I was going to add this at the others at the end of the meeting, but it's a good other time right now. We are looking at some space concerns at Cherokee as we thought we would have. As you drive up and down 747, that area just seems like there's new subdivisions that's popping up left and right. So right now they have one called portable classroom, modular classroom that has 2 classroom units in it. It's not used for any regular classrooms right now. It's used for a gifted and a special breakout. But by the projected enrollment, they're going to have to use some of their other classrooms internally, and they're going to have a need for 2 more classrooms. So we're looking at a new portable that would have 4 classrooms. So it'd be 2 more classrooms based on what they have right now in portable units. So well, the one they have right now is pretty old and it's in not great shape. And we had conversations about what would be the right one. So we're looking at, it's called a quad. So it's basically 2 portables that put together that have a shared hallway. And from a safety perspective, it's a little bit better where you'd have potentially 4 teachers in there, and they could cover and be internal and do some coverage if one needs to step out or do something like that. So from that perspective, we like that. And the other location we're looking at is over at Van Gordon. And what's driving that right now is our preschool numbers. The changes in the numbers for number of kids per classroom. We're not able to do anything different or move those classrooms anywhere else. So we're in Van Gordon's 3-6 population is growing. So we're starting to run out of space at Van Gordon. So we're going to look at putting a 2 classroom modular portable classroom over there. We have not talked in detail with Julie about what you would put there, but it's probably going to be some kind of interventions or maybe a special or something that's not a typical everyday classroom would be how that will go. We've lived that past before where we had everyday classrooms in those modulars. So we do not like those, but right now that's our reality.
Is that for this fall?
Yes, that's what we're planning on for this fall.
You talk about where they would go. Can you mention where they would go? At
Uh,
those sites?
Yeah, so for the locations of them for Cherokee, it's basically, if you've been to Cherokee lately, they have a modular unit right outside the main office right there. It would be in that same location. And for Van Gordon, it would be on the back side of the building. There's a back entrance to the gymnasium. It'd be in that green space back there on the back side of the building. And we'll continue to look at that, especially with, we try to look at doing something different, trying to look at the shared border between Endeavor and Cherokee to see if we could do any kind of boundary for enrollment changes, but Endeavor's numbers are too high as well. So we couldn't flex those students down or change the boundaries to have a non-brick and mortar solution to the enrollment growth. So we did look at that as an option as well.
So at this point now, but no boundary changes for the fall.
Correct.
Okay.
Any questions about that? All right, great. Okay, so the next topic we want to talk through is there's another handout here. We have it's color coded with the green and red on it. We call it our master plan activity checklist. So we wanted to go through this, and we thought it'd be a good idea to start to look at both action items that may be required moving forward, and just a timeline about when those would happen and different things that would be part of this process. So as of now, based on the conversations we've had, and this is again subject to change, we can have those discussions here. But as of now, we are basing this timeline on the first available opportunity to be on the ballot in May of 23. So we took that May of 23 date for a ballot and pushed everything back to create this timeline. Again, if we change that date or do it, it would impact the schedule, but it gives you an idea of what kind of things would still need to happen regardless of when you're on, when we go forward with this plan. There's still some things that are always going to be needed if we're ever going to be on the ballot. So again, the first thing that you see here in red is the OFCC piece. They would want to take some action if we want to participate with help, get those updated cost numbers, enrollment numbers, and get better information. Again, there's no cost or obligation to the district to do that, but it is recommended by them. As you go down the list, and we'll get to this in a lot more detail in the next portion of the meeting, but at the end of this month and beginning of June, we have some community outreach meetings. And we're going to talk about, going through, talking about the different options that were selected and giving an update to our community about those. And we look at having those at the various sites, and we'll talk about this in a little bit in more detail, but West Freshman, Hopo Junior, and Woodland would be the 3 sites that we would host the updates for the community to attend. And going through that, and basically we just went through, and again, these may change throughout the course of the year, but we've added every board meeting that we know of right now, and when there will be some kind of action required moving forward. The next action requirement, if we stay with the May timeframe, would be in October, which we would need to submit our final master plan that we want to move forward with to the OFCC.
Did you just list where we would have those community engagement meetings?
Yes, it's right below. It's May 31st, May 31st, June 1st, and June 6th.
And what schools did you just say?
West Freshman, Hopo Junior, and Woodland. And we'll talk a little bit more about this through the community engagement process as well, get some more details on that, but that is the plan right now. But those are the first 2 that we have, just that we know about. So there'll be many more that we'll talk about here in a bit. But as we go through the schedule too, that, like I said, the next board action item would have to be in October, where we pass a resolution agreeing on the final master plan, narrow the options from 4 to 1. And we will submit that to the OFCC for approval. If you want to go on in May, we'd have to look at resolutions. You need to pass 2 resolutions to be on the ballot. The first one would trigger the auditor to go through and look at, it will be for necessity, and the auditor will go through and determine the millage and get it back to us. Then we'd have to do another one to actually be on the ballot. So, and again, that's all based on the May 8th timeframe, which may or may not be the board's desire, but that's where we started with this process to at least give you some idea of the timing and what that could look like. If we want to talk about this now or in the future, just talk about if May's what the board desires, the pros, the cons. If we look at a November, if we look at a later date, we can talk through some of those things now and start determining what we like, dislike about that May timing.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
I will throw out one thing on the schedule is that if you want to move ahead with the May election day, you really do need to stay on this timeframe. It's the processes that really do take a long time, particularly through the OFCC. A lot of these processes where you make these submittals and that, they are months. They have to go through their commission and they review them. And then they go on to another, the state commissioning agent for approval. So you really do have to hit these steps or you will not be there when you need to set the millage and to continue through. So just a heads up that there's not a lot of give and take in the schedule, the way it's laid out right now.
So, and from my perspective, I started going through and looking at that and started listing some of the pros and cons that I can think of and started looking at, and that may be a con right now is, even though May seems like a far time away, some of the action items are still relatively soon. So that may be some of the cons that we're looking at as far as the timing may seem a little, even though I feel like we've been working on this for 2+ years. Now that it's come down, that we're starting to get more definition to it, the timing does feel like it's speeding up a little bit as you get closer to a possible ballot issue. Some of the other things we looked at, some of the pros is you start the process sooner, it's less expensive. If the sooner you get on board, the sooner you know, and you can maybe look at that. Some of the other cons is, the public engagement process, a majority of it will be over this summer. So how engaged can we get the community over the summer? We're going to do our first attempt here at the end of the school year, but some families and parents, when school's out, and when they start seeing school buses roll again, they'll start, well, school's coming, right? So that's a con that I thought of. Something else that was brought to my attention that we need to look at, if we do want to go on this May, we may be the only thing on the ballot. So that may be a con. If we're the only thing that's on the ballot in May, that would be our total cost to put that on the ballot. So that could be a con as well, to have a standalone ballot issue. So if you look beyond May, the next opportunity would be in November. Again, if you push it back to November, you start to push back the cost. You start to push back some of the our capital planning improvements. Those older buildings don't get any better with time. You will have more updated OFCC numbers for the cost. You will have a better cost piece at that time. And I don't know if this is a real thing or not, but it could be. This is my point. This is strictly me. In November, it could be this facility master plan process could be politicized like everything else and be used either for or against pro district stuff. There's not to throw anything out there, but there's 2 board seats up. So if a bunch of people are running, there could be a bunch of pro against, and it becomes more against that than really what's the school board member wants to run for. So that's my perspective on that. So then if you push it beyond November, that piece that really we get into really unknown costs and escalations that it's really hard to understand what those final costs would be if we push it beyond November of next year. And really how interested would the OFCC be willing to keep up with us if we keep pushing it back. Other cons is we just don't know the financial health of the country. If it's back in 2008 where we had the housing market crash and other things happen, that could impact the community's outlook on getting on the ballot as well. So those are some of the pros and cons that I've thought over the last couple of days. So I'm sure there's more that I've either missed or didn't capitalize enough. So, but it helps us to understand too from a planning process what the board's desire is, if they desire to be in May or November or some other time. That way we can utilize our resources. We can do our capital planning a little bit better. So that's where I am right now on this process.
To address one of the cons, what is your current plan to engage the community, as in the information, the way you're going to disperse the information to get everybody engaged? Because I remember the last meeting we had, very few, there were a few people that were engaged. And when I asked questions in the community, a lot of people said they were not aware We
Right.
had that.
Right, and we are going to get into a lot of detail about community engagement. And again, that community engagement process can be as short or as long as we want it. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to engage the public. It's just a matter of timing and like I said, the bad part about May is a bulk of it would be over the summer, because if we have an October timeframe to submit a master facilities plan, that gives you all the summer, we get back in August, September to really engage your community, and that may feel rushed to some people. To say, hey, I didn't know about it until I got back for the school year. People are ready to be out of school now, not ready to think about it again until September.
Yeah.
So,
I think the benefit of having the election in November would be that more community members would have a say in whether or not we should go forward with this plan or not. I think in May, you may save costs, but you're not going to get a lot of the community members expressing, their vote. So if you want, I feel like to hear more from the community, November would be the best, looking at that aspect of it.
As far as your levy history, our levy history is not great in this district. We know that. The last time anything was passed other than November was in 1996. So when this district has been successful, it's been November since 1996. March of 1996, there was a current expense that was successful. And then going back beyond that, in 1994, in February, the district was successful with a bond issue. But after that time period, November has been the time period. Not that you haven't tried different times, but November has been when you've been successful. And if you go back and look, having more people come to the ballot and the polls usually presents a better opportunity for a passage with bond issues. But
So do you have a recommendation on timing, either Chris or Jenny or anyone else at the table? Or Matt?
to me, I think there's pros and cons to both. To me, I think we're at a good place where we understand it well. I think we've got some great options. My concern is just the timing of May, even though I'd want to get it done sooner and know that we're going to move forward with it. But, and another part is November is just unknown right now. So
I also think that we need to do some community engagement before we make that decision.
Community engagement. Well, I think we would, right? Don't we do,
We start it next month.
right, through,
There's certainly time to be thinking about
I do worry about,
bond issue.
yeah, I do. I agree with you. I worry about the November election from the political stand of a school board, which isn't supposed to be political, but as we know, has turned into that. So that does concern me. We'd have to really make sure we're on message and not get down in the weeds with the politics of it,
And like Chris mentioned, there's pros and cons to
right?
each month. And he mentioned it before, but just to reiterate that if we do in May, we're probably going to be on our own. We would incur all the costs. So
I can't, what do you really think would be on our own, Jenny? I mean, it's a primary. There's got to be something besides. Do the people with issues pay? Candidates, like Board of Elections doesn't pay for all of the,
if we would be the only thing on the ballot, then
the only issue? Or
if
the
we-
only thing?
yes, but if it's May, and as we've seen, if it's a primary and
Yeah.
then there would be additional things on the ballot.
I just meant like issue versus,
And I'm not sure as far as our township, we haven't talked to our townships. That's another thing that we should really
Right.
consider is, are either of our townships looking at any kind of levy, anything on the county wide basis? I mean, all
A
of
lot
those
of
things need
discussion
to,
about still.
So I think
taken in.
there's time to start the community engagement piece of it, see what kind of turnout we get. I mean, we don't have to decide today if we do May or November,
Right.
correct? So we can spend some time talking to the trustees, seeing how these first 3, 4, 5, 6 community engagement participation
Yeah, we can go into that and talk about what the plan is for the community engagement, what we plan to tackle now, but if there's other things that we need to incorporate into that community engagement piece now, whether it's do you prefer May, do you prefer November, do you prefer something else? That could be part of our communication piece as well.
Why don't we go ahead and go into the community engagement
Okay.
part so we know where that's at?
Perfect.
So as we saw on the schedule and Chris has mentioned, we've got 3 tentatively scheduled right now, May 31st, June 1st, and June 6th. Those are only the first 3. We absolutely will have lots more than that, but looking at our calendars, when could we get everybody together? The plan would be to then continue that with other sessions throughout the summer. And then according to the activity checklist, the board would be making a final decision in October, late October. So that gives us the beginning of the school year as well, to re-engage with PTOs and PTAs and basically, take it on the road. We have the financial prospectuses coming out at the end of this month. And there is a whole section about the master facilities plan in there, and that gets mailed to every single household. If you are agreeable to the first 3 dates, we have a postcard that we will get mailed out to every household to help promote those 3 dates as well. We also will have the quality profile, which I think I mentioned at our last meeting. We're going to get that out earlier. Normally it goes out in October. We would put that out in September. That's another opportunity to mail to every household, because we definitely want to get in touch with all of our community. Also partnering up with the chamber and doing updates at chamber meetings, going to the townships and asking for time to make a brief presentation there. Every opportunity that we can grab, we will do. So.
June 6th would normally be our facilities committee meeting. So we would do that in place of?
Either in place of, or we could do the facilities meeting, earlier in the day and then run over to the building. That one was at Woodland, which is right up the street. Because we would have them in the evenings,
What time frame are you thinking, Betsy?
7 to 8.
7 to 8.
And we would also, we could also offer a tour of the building if anybody is interested, so that they can see inside of our schools. Because as we've talked about, you drive by our schools, they look pretty nice from the outside. And a lot of them look nice inside too. But to get that, one-on-one conversation about what,
The things you can't see.
yeah, the mechanicals,
The roofs.
the roofs, yeah, furnaces.
What is the location for the 31st?
I'm sorry, the 31st would be at West Freshman. June 1st is at Hopewell Junior. And June 6th would be at Woodland Elementary School.
Would those be broadcast as well as in person, or would they?
So we wouldn't live stream them, but we will definitely record them and we will post those on our YouTube channel, on our website. The other thing is that we would have a thought exchange for all options. So the first part of the presentation would be, why do we need a master facilities plan? Educating the community, getting them caught up about the process that we've gone through, OFCC, ELP, then the state of our facilities, how the OFCC has rated our facilities. And then we would go into the options that you all have narrowed down to the 4. Afterwards, what we would like people to do is, my vision would be that we would lay the options out, large poster kind of thing. And there would be a thought exchange for every single option. And the thought exchange would ask, what do you like about this option? What questions or concerns do you have? And that way we could gather information about each individual one right then and there. We would also share those out online. Jim and Ashley have put together these lovely videos that actually just bring to life what we're talking about on paper, and they're really easy to understand. and we would attach each one of those videos to the thought exchange. So if you're going to see option one, before you get into the exchange to put in your thought, you would watch this video that shows what phase one looks like, what phase two looks like, where are the additions, that
Okay.
sort of thing.
We got the videos to show them tonight too. So
Perfect.
they can see those, get a feel for what it'd be.
Mhm. And then that way we could bring back all of that information for you, and you'll be able to see what everybody's feedback is as you're making your final decision on what our plan would be.
Feedback?
I think we need to start sooner than later on community engagement. And I mean, I'm fine with those dates. I do also don't think that there's something that we all need to approve. If we can go, we go. If we can't, I don't think it goes around our schedule. I think we need to put it out there and get the community.
And it sounds like you have some flexibility built into the plan and you can kind of add in as needed and flex
Right,
the plan.
Right. And I just thought it was important to get the first three on the schedule now, because we still have school newsletters that are going out, and we can include, we can start promoting internally.
Yes.
The come join us and bring a friend.
Yeah.
Isaac, did you have feedback?
Did you say, I'm sorry, what time will these events start?
7.
7 to 8? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Perhaps we could advertise a tour from 6 to 7 at each of the locations.
Yeah, the June 6th one might be difficult if we're going to have a committee meeting beforehand.
We do post tours that time,
I'd say
maybe.
maybe after, if people want to stick around
I
for
mean,
a
it's
tour.
optional.
Yeah, make it optional.
I'm thinking they're more likely to before and then to stick
that is
around after, but we'll figure it out scheduling wise. I do want to suggest, and I appreciate the use of technology. We have some in our community that aren't going to be technology oriented and won't be familiar with thought exchange or those kind of things. So maybe at the same time, when we do these meetings, we can include an old fashioned technology, which is sticky notes, that they could have those thoughts right there when they're seeing it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we could do, we could have index cards and people go straight down and have a Dropbox for each one as well.
I'd like to see that happen too.
Sure.
Thank
If,
you.
if we did something like that, I don't know how it would work, but it'd be great. Yeah, it would be great if someone, if they didn't feel comfortable going in doing thought exchange, they put out an index card. We could add that to the thought exchange so people could see
Chris, I was thinking the same thing.
that as well. So,
I think
we
you're
don't-
messing with Betsy's thought exchange. Chris, I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
no, because
Yes.
if someone has a great thought or something that's on a note card, I think, or not even not so great, and that's what
Right.
thought exchange
Yeah,
does.
it's thought exchange. yeah.
So at least it's out there and they have their voice is able to be
Yeah,
heard
that's a good
beyond just
idea.
the note card that's seen by this committee.
Or if you see the same thing in the index, like you see 12 of the same comment, if it's an index card in a box, then that's something you want to put in your thought exchange for
Mhm.
other.
Other thoughts on the community engagement meetings that we'd like to see? Anything?
Thank you, Betsy, for putting that together and working with.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and show you those videos real quick. They're not very long, but it sort of gives you a visual. I thought it was great, so. Fall asleep. Projector.
This is why we still have sticky notes.
The projector's not on. Oh, there it is. I heard it click on.
It's coming to life.
Technology is also a part of the map.
I'll start your drums one of these times.
One, includes renovations and additions to current schools while keeping the existing grade configuration. This is the district's current grade configuration and schools. Phase 1 includes renovations and additions to the following: Liberty Early Childhood, Shawnee Early Childhood, Freedom Elementary, Adina Elementary, Cherokee Elementary, Ridge Junior, Liberty Junior, Hopewell Junior, West Freshman, East High School, and West High School. Phase 2 includes renovations and additions to the following: Wyandotte Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Union Elementary, Van Gordon Elementary, Woodland Elementary, Endeavor Elementary, Independence Elementary, Plains Junior, and East Freshman. Final configuration is 22 schools in use, 0 schools decommissioned, 0 new schools, and 22 additions and/or renovations. Total master plan cost is $400 million. The total cost includes phase 1 work, phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities. Master Plan Option 2. The grade configuration changes to the following: pre-K, K through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 8, and 9 through 12. Phase 1 includes the following new schools: 2 new K through 3 schools, 1 new 4 through 6 school, 1 new 7 through 8 school, and additions to East and West high schools. In phase 1, the following schools will be decommissioned: Creekside Early Childhood, Hopewell Early Childhood, Adina Elementary, Hopewell Junior, and West Freshman. Phase 2 includes the following additional new schools: 2 additional new K through 3 schools and 1 additional new 4 through 6 school. In phase 2, the following schools will be decommissioned: Shawnee Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Freedom Elementary, Woodland Elementary, and Liberty Junior. Final configuration is 19 schools in use, 10 schools decommissioned, 7 new schools, and 2 additions. Total master plan costs $410 million. The total cost includes phase 1 work, phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities. Master Plan Option 3. The grade configuration changes to the following: pre-K, K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Phase 1 includes the following new schools: 1 new K through 5 school, 1 new 6 through 8 school, and 1 new 9 through 12 options building shared by East and West high schools. In phase 1, the following schools will be decommissioned: Adina Elementary, Creekside Early Childhood, Freedom Elementary, and West Freshman. Phase 2 includes the following additional new schools: 2 additional new K through 5 schools and 1 additional new 6 through 8 school. In phase 2, the following schools will be decommissioned: Hopewell Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Shawnee Early Childhood, Woodland Elementary, Hopewell Junior, and Liberty Junior. Final configuration is 18 schools in use, 10 schools decommissioned, 6 new schools, and 0 additions. Total master plan cost is $400 million. The total cost includes phase 1 work, phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities. Master Plan Option 4. The grade configuration changes to the following: pre-K, K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Phase 1 includes the following new schools: 1 new K through 5 school and 2 new 9 through 12 schools. Plains Junior, Ridge Junior, and East Freshmen will become K through 5 schools, and East and West High Schools will become 6 through 8 schools. The following schools will be decommissioned: Creekside Early Childhood, Hopewell Early Childhood, Adena Elementary, Hopewell Junior, Liberty Junior, and West Freshman. Phase 2, the following schools will be decommissioned: Shawnee Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Woodland Elementary, and Freedom Elementary. Final configuration is 15 schools in use, 10 schools decommissioned, 3 new schools, and 0 additions. Total master plan cost is $410 million. The total cost includes phase 1 work, phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities.
That was good.
Ashley, you have a
Yeah.
career as a voiceover.
Yeah.
You can get a little part-time gig doing voiceover.
One question I would, or one thing I would ask is, would we be able to put dates on this? Just so people, I think people are unaware of the time frame, and there's concern regarding tearing down some of these buildings, which are rather new. And I think if they see the time frame, that might help a little bit understand. I mean, I know it's really within the next eight years. Yeah, but I think I've heard some concern about that. So I think maybe putting the dates on there might help them understand this is not all going to be done within the first year or two, that it's a spread out process.
So just so I understand, making sure, so just saying, if we start on this day, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to complete this process, something,
Yes.
a general statement like that?
Yes, or just like 2021, 24 to 25, 29 to 2030. This was for option 3C. Are these?
Well, that really depends on
That depends on.
when we pass a bond issue,
Right.
then, so I think a general statement saying, once a bond issue is passed, we can
Okay,
add on 3 to 5 years for this something, a
Okay.
general statement like
Yeah.
that. So it gives a baseline of passing your bond. Then from that point on, it takes this
Okay.
long to complete that process.
yeah, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
The other thing is I noticed that it said 2021 cost set. Are we going to update that with the 2022?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a really good point. I think before you put these videos out, we should get the new numbers from the OFCC and put in the latest and greatest information so that we're current anyway.
Right.
Which we would plan on doing.
So to add to the community engagement, especially where the decommissioned buildings are going to be, we've been a neighborhood model for many, many years. I'd like to see us do where those buildings are, to do meetings at each one of those buildings.
That absolutely is the plan.
Great, thank you. So Chris, there was a comment on a couple of those renovations to district facilities. Do you want to flesh that out a little bit?
Well, if you look at the master plan piece, the renovations would include, as you build your new buildings, any existing or remaining buildings, there'll be upgrades made to those at some point to bring them up to current standards. So there's not a set time frame on that. We just know that as part of our master plan, when you get that approved, at some point in time, East Freshman is going to need a new chiller, a new boiler, or do something like that. So that is part of those planning costs in the future that we would look at. And if you go through the L program, you receive those credits to do that. So if we get if our equity number comes up before we're ready to do that project, we already have that money from the OFCC. We would use that money to do those upgrades and not have to go back for an additional request from our community to do those type of things.
Okay,
Is
like-
there, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Julie.
It just seems as long as you're participating, you're trying to take full advantage of that participation and the state share of the dollars.
Correct.
Yeah, similar, just to add, East and West High School, I mean, they're 25 years old. We're currently looking at a project this summer for a new chiller as well as work here. So even though Plains, Junior and East and West High, they're very great facilities, but it's around that time threshold where as we move forward, we would receive those credits for those buildings and any type of improvements.
That was going to be my suggestion. Is there any validity in putting how old our buildings are? To Darby's point, the community thinks that they're newer and they're not. Our youngest buildings or at least, or I
underneath
guess
each of
Union,
those buildings might be helpful.
just how old the building is. And just like you said, it East and West at 25 years. I mean, I just had to get a new furnace, air conditioner and a hot water heater this year. And my house is 19 years old. So it does, and a lot more people come through these schools than my house. So, I mean,
Yeah, I
it is
think
going
I-
to be to the point where just the maintenance of them.
Aren't we the
agree with
oldest
Kate.
high schools in the county?
We are the oldest high schools in the county.
How old is Adina?
I think it was built in 1978, I believe.
I thought
Okay.
78. We have other questions? Any other suggestions for community engagement?
Yeah, I have something.
Okay,
For community engagement, if we also include the breakdown of the cost for the old buildings that we're going to commission, that will help the community understand why we're going this in the new direction. Because if they don't see the cost and the advantage of the renovations or the ones we're going to demolish, they will feel like there's nothing wrong. Why would we want to make a change?
So you want to see, like, for instance, Shawnee, we've been working down on Shawnee that this year was scheduled for $900,000 worth of roof work. We've pushed that back down to try to do something far less than that
Yep.
until we understand our master plan. So you want information like that as part of the communication process.
Yes, yes.
Got it.
Chris, you have anything else for us?
I do not.
Board, any other questions or comments? Mr. Miller, Mrs. Logan,
Nice job.
committee members, anything else?
The videos look good. Well
They
done.
do look really good.
Yep.
Very understandable.
All right, with nothing else, are we ready to adjourn? All right, we are adjourned.